Today I am presenting the evidence I have found regarding the existence of a Neolithic long barrow on Highdown Hill, north of Ferring in Sussex. In modern times there is no record of a long barrow or any other Neolithic structure on Highdown Hill. I found the telltale signs of the associated side ditches of a long barrow when searching aerial photos for evidence of a Roman villa, which I have not yet found. Many Neolithic flint tools have been found on or around Highdown. Therefore finding a burial monument is not surprising. The 3D reconstruction on screen has the correct dimensions and is located where the long barrow once stood on Highdown Hill. This map shows the location of Highdown Hill. It is north of Ferring, between Angmering and Durrington. Access to the long barrow is on foot via the Highdown car park. The distance is about 1 kilometre. The field in which the long barrow is located is privately owned, and access requires specific permission from the landowner. The large area, which includes the hilltop enclosure, is owned by the National Trust and is open for public access. Access to the Highdown car park is via Highdown Rise from the A259 eastbound carriageway that is signed for Highdown Gardens. This delightful location with spectacular views is very popular with dog walkers and other folk. Consequently, the car park can become quite busy, especially if the weather is good. The obvious archaeological feature is the enclosure at the top of the hill. The following summary is taken from the National Trust, who own the hill. A late Bronze Age Ram's Hill type enclosure was overlaid by an Iron Age univalent hill fort. The Iron Age hill fort was refortified between 270 and 300 AD. It was later used as a burial ground for more than 150 individuals in the 5th and 6th centuries AD, and then finally a World War II radar station. This image is a Google Earth aerial photo of Highdown Hill with an overlay of the camp at the top of the slope. The field to the west is the subject of this presentation. In the 1930s, a Roman bathhouse was excavated by Worthing Archaeological Society in this field. Therefore, it's always worth looking at aerial photos in case the bathhouse footings show as ground marks. The field is interesting because it seems very unlikely that a bathhouse with 2 hot rooms will be constructed without an associated villa. It's always worth inspecting any new aerial photos to see if any evidence of the villa remains. Here we have an excellent line drawing of the main structure produced by Worthing Archaeological Society. Note the columns of bricks, known as pilae, that are used to support the stone slabs, which form the floor of the hot room. 2 sumps are described. Presumably these acted as soakaways into porous chalk for the dirty water. The source of fresh water for the bathhouse was very probably a spring that surfaced a little further up the hill from the buildings. An excellent 1937 photo clearly showing the supporting columns for the hot room floor, although not stated in the 1937 excavation report. It is believed that the archaeology will have been preserved when backfilling the site. The second hot room, again drawn by Worthing Archaeological Society, but this time no evidence of a raised or heated floor. Presumably the area was heated by radiant heat from the walls. The field to the west has no features visible on LiDAR, but the area owned by National Trust is full of detail. Unfortunately, the bathhouse location has been ploughed flat and all surface features have gone, so there is nothing to see on the ground. The broken line at the top is the public footpath just outside the field. The bathhouse footings are in the northeast corner of the field, but do not appear in either current or historical Google Earth images. However, Bing maps do show the footings as grass marks or ground marks, and after inspecting many aerial photos for this location, only one image happens to have been recorded on the perfect day when the subsurface features are visible as ground marks. It may well be that a subsequent rain shower on the following day could have been sufficient to erase the surface images. This image allows us to very accurately locate the buildings, thereby assisting any geophysical survey that may be carried out. With the eye of faith, can we just make out the tops of some remaining pillars? Using the correctly scaled Worthing Archaeological Society drawings, we can demonstrate an exact correlation with the ground marks. To the west of the bathhouse, we can see a large horseshoe shape, which we have now been able to identify as the excavation trenches of a Neolithic long barrow. This image includes 4 walkers on the path and gives an idea of scale for the ground marks. The trenches were over 6 meters wide in places. The length is about 37 meters and the width about 38 meters. We don't know how long barrows were built, but many workers must have been employed, as the volume of material is enormous. Simply excavating the trenches in virgin chalk is extremely difficult without modern tools. The field has other ground mark features that appear in the Bing Maps aerial photos. These are very interesting, but something of a puzzle. We know for sure that the bathhouse ground marks are due to the presence of mortared flint walls lying just below the ground surface. The poor depth of soil directly above means the ground will dry out more quickly than the surrounding deeper soil, and the contrasting grass or crop growth results in the subsurface feature becoming visible from above. This process may occur very rarely and is unlikely to be visible when the period of drought is broken by rain. Moving across to the Long Barrow site, we see the same lightening of the surface vegetation, even though, in this case, we are looking at backfield trenches, where we expect the backfield material to be topsoil. Moving next to the pill-shaped feature, we see very sharply defined edges to what can only be backfilled trenches that were originally dug to provide the material that formed the barrows. The hexagonal shape between the bathhouse and Long Barrow is the correct size, shape and location for a hexagonal Roman temple. An alternative explanation is simply that it was a pond. This makes sense because we know there must have been a source of fresh water to supply the bathhouse, although a backfilled pond is even more likely to result in enhanced crop growth. Another puzzle is provided by the large rectangular dark area to the south of the field. Many different ground marks are visible, and they're numbered in this image. Possibly a coincidence, but the old lane that runs close to the possible Long Barrow site is called Langbury Lane. Lang possibly being derived from Old English or Old Norse as long, and bury may refer to the burial of human remains, according to Wikipedia. So how do we investigate further? It's probably going to be a lengthy process, so I've enlisted James Sainsbury to run the project. Desktop surveys have been carried out by various experts. The landowner has been involved, and we've sought his permission to enter the field. Mike Gill, a Long Barrow expert, has been consulted and given advice regarding the Long Barrow. The consensus of the experts is that it's probably a Neolithic Long Barrow. Therefore, we've assembled a team to conduct a magnetometry survey. The survey result is very convincing. It really is a Long Barrow. If the Highdown Horseshoe ground mark is the remnant of an ancient Long Barrow, can we find a verified Long Barrow elsewhere to compare it with? The following slide uses the geophysical survey result at Gussage St Michael Long Barrow to compare the shape, dimensions and orientation with the Highdown Horseshoe round mark. This image shows the Gussage St Michael Long Barrow overlaid on the Highdown aerial photo. They are the same size, the same shape, and have the same orientation. The similarity of these two Long Barrows is unexpected and quite striking. Gussage St Michael was chosen because the magnetometry images were readily available, but subsequent inspection of other known Long Barrows shows a large variation in shape, dimension and orientation. Gussage St Michael is also completely ploughed out, but shows very clearly in a geophysical survey. If confirmed, Highdown will be the first Long Barrow to be discovered between the rivers Arun and Ada. The midwinter sunrise bearing of 128 degrees added to the aerial photo. Some, but not all Long Barrows, have their entrance aligned to face the midwinter sunrise, although Highdown is particularly accurately positioned. This is the midwinter sunrise, 21st of December at 8:46 in the morning, looking along the length of the mound. With no intervening hills or obstructions, the Highdown Barrow has a clear line of sight to the horizon. Therefore, the position of the rising sun at the midwinter solstice is very obvious. Other Long Barrows do not necessarily have the same uninterrupted view, and this may influence the bearing with which to align the mound. Highdown is clearly the most prominent feature in the local landscape. Therefore, it is not surprising to find that the site has been important for many thousands of years. Although 24 kilometres apart, there is an unobstructed view from Highdown all the way to the Neolithic causewayed enclosure on Whitehawk Hill, east of Brighton. The decision was made to conduct a magnetometry survey of the Horseshoe feature. James Sainsbury arranged for access to the field with the landowner. Mike Gill kindly dealt with all of the regulatory formalities in the name of Avon Valley Archaeological Society. A small team was assembled with Saturday, August the 19th, 2023 as the survey date. The location coordinates for the main feature were taken from Bing Maps and Google Earth. This was then used to map a 60 metre by 120 metre survey grid overlaid where GPS suggested. To allow for GPS errors, the grid was made considerably larger than the feature. The survey result was then overlaid in Google Earth, where an excellent correlation with the Bing ground marks can be seen. This confirmed that we were looking in the correct location. To improve the alignment of the scans, each measurement was made walking in the same direction. This doubles the amount of walking involved, but eliminates the errors that inevitably develop when the software is relied upon to rotate and stitch together scans from alternating directions. Matching the machine to positions along the scan is done by ensuring that the operator walks at a pace that aligns 2-meter markers on the ground, with periodic beeps from the machine. Fortunately, Mike Gill is very experienced at this and has the necessary energy and enthusiasm. We were fortunate to have excellent weather for the occasion. It was no surprise to confirm there was absolutely no surface evidence of either Long Barrow or Bathhouse. A very brief inspection of the area in which the spring head may have been located did not reveal any clues. Mike Gill was able to confirm that the Highdown horseshoe ground mark is indeed evidence of a ploughed out Neolithic Long Barrow. The magnetometry also showed 2 parallel linear features 3 meters wide to the south of the Long Barrow. This image also shows the results of a magnetometry survey of the bathhouse buildings. 2 distinct linear features at right angles are visible. These linear features may be associated with the water management that would have been required to handle the spring water. The hexagonal mark seen in aerial photos does not provide a very strong mag response, but it's not hexagonal. So why build here? Clearly the bathhouse required a good source of clean water. If the spring supplying the bathhouse was present 5,000 years ago, it may be the reason the barrow was constructed, as there is often an association between springs and Neolithic barrows. It would make sense for a villa to also be constructed close to the spring, but there is no evidence either in ground marks or ceramic building material near the bathhouse. Large quantities of Roman CBM have been found at the west of the field, near the windmill. Neolithic axes were found by the late landowner further up the hill, and Harrow flint mines can be found to the north of Highdown. According to Professor Tony King, this is the correct size, shape and location for a hexagonal Roman temple. Alternatively, this may simply be a pond that takes the runoff from the bathhouse buildings and just looks hexagonal in the aerial photo. The pill-shaped feature is located to the southeast of the field and could be a Neolithic mortuary enclosure or simply overlapping barrows. The consensus leans toward the overlapping barrow idea, although why this was necessary in such a large field is not clear, and the inevitable circle extension inside the pill shape is missing. There is a ground mark between the bathhouse and the hexagonal shape, which appeared on the 2022 Google Earth imagery. The 1937 excavation report identifies a trial trench and provides a very convoluted description for the path of this trench. The end point of this trench appears to be coincident with the circular blob in this image, which the report describes as a rubbish dump containing the following: pottery. There was very little imported ware in this rubbish dump. There were, however, quantities of Roman greywares, which included several pieces of flanged bowls. Many more remains of flattish dishes were to be seen than in the sumps of the bathhouse. The general characteristics of the pottery seem to suggest a slightly earlier date to the main bulk of the pottery round the bathhouse, and more comparable to the as yet unrecorded pottery from Eccleston Manor, referred to previously in this article. But I have no doubt that this dump served the inhabitants of the bathhouse at one point of their occupation. Zoomed in with fence posts visible. The 1937 excavation had limited time and manpower, therefore it seems unlikely that the rubbish pit was completely removed, maybe a target for future archaeologists. So is this Neolithic long barrow likely to be the only Neolithic feature in the field? Were Neolithic folk likely to live nearby, at the top of the hill perhaps? Would a limited excavation of the long barrow be worth doing? What is it likely to reveal? What could the pill-shaped feature be? Is the hexagonal feature just a pond? Where exactly was the head of the spring? Can we find it today? Where did the water run to when it left the bathhouse? Are further excavations in the field worth doing? And finally, where is the villa?